many things were there which I learned or I listened from them. Now I realize, no, this what I've learned from them has changed my mindset. I really cannot predict the future. So for me, podcasting is audio because it's a passive medium. Friends who I was not in very much contact with, she messaged me one day, like 2 a.m. in the night, and she said, "Thank you very much for sharing this episode." She was going through a lot in her life, her own life, and one particular episode she listened to, and she said, after listening to that episode, I now feel that my life has lesser problems than that guest's life. But luckily, what happened was I
Definitely.
the platform that I had used for recording it was a paid podcast, and they had a backup in their system. So I luckily got that, but that very very embarrassing moment for me. And there are passive mediums from where you can earn money from. So you don't earn directly from the podcast, but then uh, because of your podcast, you get a lot of money.
Hi and welcome to Soul Velocity. I am Snehal Singh, your host, and I'm excited to take you on this incredible journey where we tap into the wisdom of entrepreneurs, authors, and creative visionaries, people who are transforming the world in ways we cannot even imagine. As the name suggests, Soul Velocity is all about finding that pivotal direction for your soul, mind, and body. A place where deep, real conversations ignite the fire to keep you moving forward. Right now, I'm thrilled to bring you a special series called as Voices and Verses 100 Authors and Countless Stories. This series is all about celebrating the writing world, connecting with authors, publishers, marketers, entrepreneurs, screenwriters, playwriters, and filmmakers who are shaping the stories that inspire us all. Through these conversations, my goal is to encourage aspiring writers, support seasoned authors, and spark new ideas that can inspire you to take you on your own creative journey to the next level. Whether you're here to learn, connect, or simply just enjoy some amazing stories, you are in the right place. Let's dive in together. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Soul Velocity. And we are doing a special series of voices and verses, 100 authors and uncountable stories. So, we are going to talk to another author here today, but at the same time, he is an amazing, well known podcaster that India has. While he has been working and doing a lot of work in terms of content creation, writing, interviewing some great, amazing people, today I get the opportunity to have a conversation with him. I'm talking about Nachiket Kshire. So, let's just get him right into the conversation and get started. So, Nachiket, first of all, thank you for giving me your time and opportunity to have this conversation. And welcome to Soul Velocity.
Yes, thank you, Snail. Thanks a lot for having me. It's a pleasure for me.
Thank you. And Nachiket, let's begin with your journey. We are on a podcast. I have been doing podcasts for a while, but you have pretty much initiated a journey and taken it to the next level altogether. So tell us a little bit about it before we jump into our many other conversations about mindset, writing, entrepreneurship, marketing, and so on.
Yeah, so I've been a marketing professional from last 15 years, and content creation has not come naturally to me. I mean, I was just a listener, and I was listening to a lot of podcasts because I travel a lot. And while traveling, no, FM was like there was more of ads and less of content. So I started listening to a podcast in around maybe 2018 or so, and at that time, that there were very very few Indian podcasts, and that too there were very few in regional languages or in Marathi in specific. So I was always searching for some content in Marathi or Hindi because though English podcasts gave me a lot of insights and a lot of wisdom, but still, what happens is when it comes to our language, we relate to it quite easily. So I was looking for that kind of a content, and I could not find it, and it's a complete serendipity. Lockdown stuck, and I got a chance. I never thought I will be creating content myself, but somehow it's all started in May 2020 in peak lockdown, and Inspiration Katta, of course, it started at then, and the journey continues till now.
So you must have had conversations with lots of people. Like I have seen the amount of episodes you have done so far as well. So has there been any such? I'm sure there are many, but a few that you can say that this struck me, and that was a key insight, and it shifted me as well. So any such stories that you can share with us?
I mean, as you said, every podcast, every episode gave me something. All the podcasts gave me some insights which are helping me now. I mean, but this, of course, when I think in hindsight, at that particular moment, when there were no such life changing thoughts that I got while recording or while uploading those episodes. But now when I think, every episode has given me absolutely great insights, absolutely life changing insights. So to remember one episode in particular is very difficult. So entirely, as just a journey, it has given me a great exposure and great insights.
But then when did these start affecting you? Like, you also understand mindset very well.
Yes.
You said you also do come from sales and marketing background too, which also needs huge understanding of how does a human mind really work. So,
Right.
how has your own mindset evolved over, past few years that you started podcasting yourself?
Yeah, so it has, as you said, it has evolved, but it has evolved very slowly, and it has evolved without even I noticing it. So when, as I said, when I look at hindsight, I can relate it to the episodes that I have done or the discussions that I had with my guest. Like many things were there which I learned or I listened from them. Now I realize, no, this what I've learned from them has changed my mindset. Just to give you one example, in my first episode itself, I was a new podcaster. I was interviewing somebody for the first time, and typically what happens is you ask questions about the difficulties or the problems that person faced while doing a lot of things that he has done in his life. So my focus was always on the problems, that what problems you face, what difficulties you faced. And then he simply just said it in one line. He said, look, if you want to work, problems are will be there. Just don't focus on the problems, just focus on the solutions and move ahead. That's all. That was a very simple one liner, but then suddenly, slowly, I realized, oh, I mean, this is such a useful wisdom. I mean, uh, every time we just focus on the problems, every time we just focus on the difficulties. But see, somebody who's not doing anything, sitting at home, he is only going to face no difficulties. Everybody else is going to face some kind of difficulties. Levels may be different, but everyone from our everyone who is working will face some kind of difficulties. So our focus should never be on difficulties. It should always be on the solutions. And that, I mean, now I feel that's a life changing wisdom that I learned there. At that time, of course, I did not realize it, but it slowly just changed my mindset.
Beautiful. I was actually about to ask you, about the challenges, but Nachiket, you've also written two books, not one. So tell us a little bit about how did these books come to existence? Because they're two different topics altogether.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more about your books.
So my first book is about the podcasting. It's called Podcasting Digital Awajachi Dunia. It's a Marathi textbook for creating and for the people who wants to learn more about this beautiful world of podcasting. So what till now, even till now, I will say that podcast has not reached the masses.
True.
It is still being listened to in few pockets. So it is, so this the social media in general, the internet in particular, has given each and every one of us a tool to to showcase something, to create some content, to ask our questions to the people who can answer them. This is a great tool that we have. No, we can either use it for destructive purpose, or we can use it for a creative purpose. I can just, you know, send a message, or tweet something right now, and there will be riots outside. Or I can use the same smartphone and same technology to create a podcast which will help me in some kind. So it's up to us what kind of content we are creating. And I am a very very optimistic person. I always feel that, to negate the negativity, more and more positive content should come out. So once all this good content starts coming out, the pornology, games and gambling, they will automatically go down. So I wish that, as I started, without any background, if I can start a podcast, anybody else also can do it. So just to take that effort to next level, I have been coaching, I have been teaching podcast in various colleges as well. So to take it to next level, we also wrote a book on this, so that this should reach more and more people. So that's one, the
That's
first book.
But the second book as well. That's very interesting. Tell us a little bit more about that.
The second book is it's called Soje Vanchil. So if you translate it in English, it's you everyone should be granted what they wish, is what it means. So as I said, with all this podcasting, my mindset changed from a very ordinary or a very negative kind of a thing to a very positive, optimistic kind of a mindset. It has helped me a lot in my journey. It has helped me a lot in overcoming all the bad days of my life, I will say. And this has changed a lot of things in my life. My podcast has helped many people in a direct way as well. I've got uh, reviews from the listeners. I've learned, I've heard stories from them, that how it has changed them also. It has also helped save a life, one life, but it has helped save that life. So the podcasting journey has been phenomenal. The views, the numbers, the awards that there, of course, you feel, I mean, you want them, but then these kind of reviews, after listening to these kind of reviews, they become secondary. So this has directly impacted lives of people, and I felt that with book, it will it may impact few more as well. And few more, if I say, even if it helps one person, that's good enough for me. So I started writing a book. The publisher, Ditya Sonone, she's also a friend and a fellow podcaster. She said, she showed a confidence in me, and she said, "You can write. So please go ahead and write." And we started with a self-help book in Marathi. And after writing few pages, when I read it, I said, "Ki, no, this is becoming too preachy. This is not what I want to read myself." So I just dropped the plan of writing a self-help book. But as serendipity again struck in, I thought of a story, and I wrote it in a fictional form, wherein the main character, or the protagonist of the book, is also a mid-aged person from a middle class family, who's doing a lot of things, but he wished to do a lot more. So it's all about his struggles. It's all about how he overcomes them, and it's all about his journey towards the goal of his life. So, Devanshil.
Yes, and I have read it, so I can connect. And you have actually written it very beautifully. And that's where the next question actually comes from, Nachiket, is podcasting. it's still not a decade old for you. At the same
Yes.
time, being an author is not as well, and you have successfully started both and also delivered it. Okay,
Yeah.
most people start it and then either they don't continue with the episodes or they start writing a book, but it never reaches
Yes.
publishing stage. So, what are some common challenges you can say that you faced in both your journeys of either being a podcaster or an author?
Absolutely. So, still, we as we were talking about mindset, this is one of the great examples of mindset change that I have, experienced. So, during the launch of my book as well, I was thinking that if somebody asks me a question that what you liked about the book most, so I said, ki, what questions will people ask? So this may be a question that will come to me. And what should be the answer? I was thinking of the part in the book that if I like this or that. And then I suddenly realized, I have thought of many things in my life earlier as well. Started it and then stopped in between. Never completed many, many things. This time I started it, I completed it, and the book is getting published. So there's the complete circle is getting completed. So this never used to happen in my life, and this never happens in most of our lives. We start off doing, we think of starting something, even start sometimes, and then we just stop there in between. So this is a mindset change which was there in me. So that was the best thing which happened. And I'm sorry, I
You actually answered the question very beautifully. But in hindsight, okay, were there any new habits that you cultivated so that you could make it happen? So, as you said, we all start something and at times don't get to the finish line. So, what did
yes,
you do differently that made you reach that finish line? So, of course, mindset played a game, but were
yes.
there any other habits or any new tricks, techniques you applied which enabled it?
Yeah, so one thing why we do stop in between is we just whenever whatever we start, we just compare ourselves with the toppers of that particular sector. Like for example, if I started a podcast, uh, just after second or third episode, I may start comparing myself with the topmost podcasters. Their level of content creation and my level of content creation will of course will be different. What we start doing is if we start going to gym, if it's our first week and if we see people who are into their like fifth year or so, there is going to be a difference in their form and our form. But what we do is we start comparing ourselves with those people, and that is where the problem comes most of the time. We start feeling that we are not doing it properly, and we start feeling that there's something wrong with us. We cannot do it. I may like we may feel that I've started a podcast, but I don't know, this is not doing that well. I'm not getting the views. I'm doing the podcast, but no, maybe my the questions that I'm asking is not that relevant. I mean, this is the difference between when you stop in between and you complete something. Whenever you get this feeling, just think about it that this is just starting. You so again, I've learned this from my
I think I can
podcasting.
relate to what you're saying because, even I had a huge gap when it came to Marathi podcast, and it did reach that point of, what am I really doing? Are these episodes even worth it? Do I, there are no number of subscribers that are growing,
Yeah,
which was easy for me to get in English, but it wasn't really happening in Marathi, which was ideally vice versa to many people who are doing things
yeah,
in Marathi. So, that pause came from a space of comparison.
yes,
Until then, I was really doing well and showing up, and episodes were really popping up. Um,
yeah,
so in these situations where comparison comes in, I think it's very natural and human for us
yeah,
to compare.
yes,
How do we remind ourselves to not compare? Like,
yeah. So we can compare, but just compare ourselves. Uh, like we are our own competition is what we should tell ourselves. Somebody else is not our competition. My episode, if my episode 10 is not better than my episode 1, then there's something wrong.
hmm,
But if I compare my episode 10 with somebody else's episode number 100, then I'm doing a wrong comparison. So we should compare. Comparison should be there, but then comparison should be there between our own earlier performances and our current performances, and there has to be a gradual improvement in your own performance. If it is not there, then there has to be a rework in that.
But then here, see, when we're doing podcasts or even books, see,
Yeah.
one thing that I find common is, Nachiket, I'm doing all the talking.
Yes.
Even if I'm bringing in the guest, I'm doing all the asking of questions, which is directing their thought process, which is getting the answers that we, in a way, want. But how do we make it relatable to readers or listeners? Because you have done that very well. Your content is very relatable. I can relate even if I'm reading your book, and I could relate even when I was listening to any of your episodes, even if it was one of the oldest episodes, or if it is the latest, I connect. So
Yeah.
what did you do any kind of research? How did you connect your listeners to understand कि क्या click करता है? Because there is that click that happens. So how does one get that?
So my formula for this is whatever I'm doing, if whether I'm interviewing someone or whether I'm writing, I'm doing it for myself. So the podcast that I was doing was for myself to learn from those people. So if I can get the answers, I feel people of my age, of my demography, mostly will connect to it, will relate to it. Even while writing, as I told you that I started with a a self-help book, but then I come from a background. I come from a very, you know, we all probably we all Indians come from a background wherein we are not taught from a particular book. We are being told stories. Whether it's Ramayana, Mahabharata, Panchatantra, Isab Niti, we've been told stories. No, we are not told that this is the rule. This is written in a particular book. You have to follow this. It is not told to us in that way. So we are told a story of Yudhishthir.
Hmm.
So after listening to it, whether you want to still go and do gambling or not, it's is up to you.
True.
Nobody's saying that it's bad or good. So it's that way of thinking, that way of storytelling which is being wired in our brains. So that is where I feel that we should never copy westerners or the trending authors or podcasters, and we should continue the way we understand it.
I like what you said because most of the times the approach starts with what is there in the market, what would
Yes.
be something that would interest the audience, and the goal starts with getting more subscribers rather than actually creating a quality product or a voice to stay back. Um, you yourself do different types of podcasts. I really want to know audio, video. What do you prefer, and what do you think is there for the long run?
I really cannot predict the future. So for me, podcasting is audio because it's a passive medium. So I listen to it. I personally listen to it because while driving or doing any other work, I listen to it. Even if it's a video, there's nothing to see. Like if people are listening to this episode of ours, there's nothing to see. Like what I mean, if we're looking
True.
at our faces, what somebody is going to get. But just by listening, we can get something, or that's a uh, input that somebody is getting. So for me, podcast has always been audio. Uh, but of course, for the practical reasons and specifically for the commercial reasons, there are very few chances of getting your podcast monetized if it's just audio,
Okay.
and that is why people are uploading it on YouTube, wherein the monetizations are already set, like it's all set. So it is easier to monetize your content on YouTube rather than on the audio platform. So uh, if we think from the point of view of the creators, YouTube is being preferred right now. But for me, audio is what I like to listen to.
I think I agree because most of my content intake comes from audio, whether it is books or podcasts.
Right.
And I feel voice has depth. If we are just, keeping that one sense active,
Yes.
there's so much more that can be narrated in through the voice.
Yes.
Uh,
If you just
mm,
listen to it, I mean, if in the visual thing, you have lot of other things which can, distract you probably. But if you're just listening to it by using your headphone, you sense the trueness of the speaker, whether the speaker is, if he's fake or if it's genuine. Everything you can just make it by listening to it.
I agree, totally in agreement with this. Uh, I'm coming a lot from a space of wanting to talk about marketing and social media and understanding of that, because in my experience so far, even as a publisher, I noticed that, Nachiket, most authors even forget introducing themselves as authors. The
Yeah.
LinkedIn profile does not have author written on it, or they have not actually posted their link. Same is it with podcast as well. There's not much marketing done. So like it's a episode which is uploaded, and I have done that myself for a really long
Yeah.
time as well. Like just record it, get it done, and put it. And then we have not found different ways of marketing it. So
Hmm.
what is your take on it? How important is it for an individual to learn marketing, or how to go about, making more people reach to your kind of work, whether it is book, whether it is podcast? What's your take on it?
Absolutely. Marketing is absolutely necessary. If you're doing something, you are not just doing it for yourself. If you're doing it just for yourself, don't publish it. Just keep it with yourself. Like have a discussion on Zoom, record it and keep it to yourself. Don't publish it. But if you are publishing it, if you are publishing a podcast or a book, you're doing it for the people at large.
True.
Then in that case, it should reach the target audience. And for that, marketing is very, very absolutely necessary. So people who say no, मैंने तो बना दिया but मेरे को किसी को बताना नहीं है. So that's a wrong approach. I feel. And this happens a lot in Marathi specifically. So and specifically authors, they never, uh, you know, for them I don't know why, but they feel marketing is not something which is worth taking efforts for, and they feel that public or the audience or the readers will reach them automatically, but it doesn't happen that way. It takes a lot of it takes a lot of effort to take your creation to the public at large. So absolutely marketing is absolutely necessary.
I agree. I agree also because, just to address what you said, which is, I think it comes a lot from either a space of writing is always a hobby and do it because you wanted to do it, publish it because you wanted that book to be published, and it
Yes.
just stays there. And then the second part, I think, also comes from unawareness.
Right.
Nobody actually knows how to get started. Okay, I got the book out. Okay, my publisher said, do this, I did. And then there comes a stop where, okay, now
Mm,
what? Because
mm.
I've never gone through the journey of first figuring out or finding, networking, or finding people, finding the readers before actually launching the book, or even for the podcast for that matter. Sometimes the link is just posted once and then
Yeah.
see it. And I'm like, no, you got to like keep doing
Right.
it until you start getting the traffic for it. But that's very much a logistical part. Are there any tips or techniques you would recommend that if somebody is doing, say, one episode, how long should they do marketing, or how often should one episode on an average come out?
Before that, I'll just like to tell you one story, of course.
Yes.
So, I was in this podcast, Inspiration Katta, and I was continuously sending it on WhatsApp, the links on WhatsApp. I had made a broadcast list. I didn't know how many of them listened to it, but I was like sending it on a very, very regular basis. And many of them might have got irritated, but that's okay. My job was to send them their, if whether they want to listen to it was up to them. One of my friends who I was not in very much contact with, she messaged me one day, like 2 a.m. in the night, and she said, "Thank you very much for sharing this episode. she was going through a lot in her life, her own life, and one particular episode she listened to, and she said, after listening to that episode, I now feel that my life has lesser problems than that guest's life. And she said, I was feeling absolutely suicidal, and after listening to this episode, I now have decided to fight back. So as I said, ki that episode, that thing saved one life.
True.
So my marketing helped somebody, or my sharing the links helped somebody.
True.
So even if it is helping one person in the entire universe, why shouldn't I market it? Why shouldn't I send it? For the frequency of it, as you asked, I think it should be done till you get bored or yeah, something new comes up. So for my book, I every time somebody sends me a review, I post it. I post it again with a compilation. So we keep repeating it.
That absolutely. You know what? I was about to ask you about the story as well because that how does one small step changed life? Like, had you not sent that message that day,
Yes,
had that person not checked it randomly, and had it not happened, I think for the universe to help us, we got to at least show up for ourselves. And that is the basis of marketing for me. It's like at least
absolutely
you show up, then where it goes, let it take its own pathway. But no,
right.
again, this is after the podcast is done. Let's talk about your prep, okay? Different people have different ways of doing podcasts. Some are
Yes,
absolutely scripted, and you yourself have seen most of them as well.
yes.
You've been a guest on many as well. So, what are your secrets of prepping for an podcast interview, or uh, how to keep your audience engaged into a conversation?
So firstly, I always like to study a lot about the guest. So I feel that if you know about the guest a lot, you get a lot of questions. I generally don't share questions as such with the guest, and but we just talk about the pointers. That these are the pointers, like we've done today. We just discuss the points on what we are going to talk. Similarly, I just send the pointers to the guest. But if I'm prepared, if I've read about him, her, listened to the previous podcast that they have done, I get a lot of insights. So when we are talking, I get a lot of questions from within that. No, this you had said in that podcast. I never feel, I never like shy of mentioning another podcast name in my podcast. I will always say ki, you would mention this in that podcast. So what is the further step? So rather than repeating that, I will always ask them the next step
Next
in
one.
doing what. Yes, and I will always say that I'll always ask my listeners to go and listen to that podcast as well, even if it is not my own podcast. If it's of my competitor's podcast, then also it is going to help somebody.
So,
So yes, and the base for me is I always know why I'm doing it.
okay.
I want answers for a particular thing from that guest. So I will keep asking questions unless and until I get the answer for that, or until and until unless I am satisfied with whatever he has or she has explained to me. So I know what I want. As I said, ki I do not know what is the trend. I do not know. I don't look at the trends. I do not know what is going to go viral and all. But I always know what I am doing this for.
True.
So I'm most of the times I'm very clear about the why of my interviews.
I
And
think
that
that gives a very great direction to what kind of questions and conversations then you have. Uh,
yes.
But then still, how do you balance? Because your episodes have both. They have inspiration, they do have a storytelling aspect, and there is a fun element also. Like there is laughter that we hear as well, and so on. So, how do you intentionally balance it, or is it something that just happens? How?
No, it just happens. I mean, when two people are talking like just we are talking like this. So we, the chatters or the discussions are always full of various emotions, no? if we are talking for 1 hour, it is never going to be one emotion from the beginning to end. It's not going to be. It's not going to be a fully inspiring discussion from for 1 hour. There's going to be storytelling. There's going to be inspiration. There's going to be laughter. Everything will come in that. So it's just a pure discussion which is happening between two people, and then all the emotions, they automatically come out. And one thing always I try to do is, I always try to be humble in front of the guest. I mean, I always feel that they know much more than me.
Hmm.
So that way I get a chance to ask a lot of questions, even if they sound pretty naive. I still ask those questions.
No, that actually brings out a lot more in terms of content and information as well. As a listener, like I enjoy those questions. But what about when you get bored? Has that phase come to you ever where you're like, bus ho gaya yaar, or nahi karna hai?
Yes, this, I mean, not in terms of a particular episode or particular.
But in general, just doing this
Yeah, I get.
recording and having conversations, thinking, doing at times I feel it does catch up with us. So
Yes, 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 it
you
does.
go through that, and then how
Yes,
do
yes.
you?
I'm currently going through that patch. I have not uploaded a podcast episode for a long time now. So you have to keep challenging yourself as well. Otherwise, you will get bored.
True.
Yeah. So and the networking, the friends in the same field, the podcast, the co-podcasters. If you have a great group, they will always push you. So you know
I think that is something that you have gifted me with a group of podcasters. And yes, sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
no. So now I'm as I know, probably I can say that I am now want to go one step ahead of just pure interviews. I want to do a narrative storytelling, and we are working on it. So next step will be that. So not just a pure interview episodes, but a step ahead of that.
Thank you. You actually answered one of my questions, though. Uh, but Nachiket, you always have recommended people. Like even since I know you, if you know that somebody can help, you have always been that connecting factor and so on. So when it comes to one book and one podcast that you would want to recommend to our audience, which would those be?
So I mean, it depends who the audience is. But if somebody who, I mean,
Something
uh,
you enjoy listening to, of course, which is not yours. So,
I would first say, start listening to podcasts rather than watching it on YouTube. Start listening, explore the podcast. There are beautiful podcasts which are there, not just the self category podcast. There are a lot of other genre podcast as well available there. Just go and listen to it. It's a beautiful world. You will really enjoy it. And there are exciting, like you've met those students of mine as well, so
yes.
there are exciting new lot of podcasts which are coming up. They are pretty much, they're very creative, and they are doing a lot of good work. So just start listening to podcasts. What genre you want to listen, what particular podcast host you want to listen, will be up to you, but start listening to it. So that is my
I think the key word is listening over here, and the focus
yes.
is on listening. What about a book? Any one book that you feel that this one book most people should read at least once in their life?
I think The Alchemist will be.
Paulo Coelho's Alchemist, yes.
Yes, yes. And Alchemist is like, as we spoke no sometime back, that it's a storytelling with a lot of inspiration, lot of self help hidden inside. So that kind of a storytelling is what I like.
Yeah, I think that's the inspiration somewhere in terms of writing as well. I haven't ever written fiction yet, but one day I want to, if I'm telling a self-help story, I want to probably do it using characters, and
Sure,
I'm definitely coming to you at that point in time for sure.
absolutely.
uh, any funny stories about behind the scenes or stuff that happens, because you have done physical recordings as well, and you explore that as well. So any thing that you can share with us today?
There have been a lot of stories. Many times what has happened. Once I had recorded a podcast very initially. I was a newcomer, and then we recorded this podcast. Peak lockdown. The guest gave me a time late in the evening. We recorded, everything was done. We wanted to upload it on a particular day. She wanted it that way, and just couple of days before that, I when I started editing it, the file was already, I had lost the file. I mean, the recording was not itself done. It was we had to upload it in 2 days, and I didn't know what to do. The earlier my would have given some excuses, but by that time I had changed a bit, so I called her and I apologized. But, but luckily, what happened was
Definitely.
the platform that I had used for recording, it was a paid podcast, and they had a backup in their system. So I luckily got that. But that very embarrassing moment for me very early in in the journey.
I can relate to that. I haven't like not hit record, but what has happened is the file completely was on mute.
Hmm.
How? No idea. So we can hear, we tried everything and then we gave up saying there is no technology that is giving us the voice or anything. And we didn't check audio before that. So since
Hmm.
I start checking audio every time I log in, but
Yes.
yes, I can definitely relate to that. Nachiket, with everything that we have been doing, and as you know, your forte has been sales, marketing, and so on. Any initial tips that you would like to give, like for a new podcaster who has just started, has recorded, have an idea, but have no idea about marketing? What are some two, three things you would say that, start with this?
So now it is be on social media first is what I would like to say. Share the links on WhatsApp, all the other social media platforms. Don't think what people will, whether people will get irritated or not. Just share it. Somebody may like it from your group. And when I started, Instagram was just no, it was not that big. Now Instagram is, the reach of Instagram is pretty high. So creating reels, and one more thing about podcasts, Neil, is this is one content from where you can, create lot of different content pieces.
Mm.
You know, for example, if you write, that's it. If you are clicking photos, that's it. That's the one content that you have created. But if you create a podcast, you can create multiple content pieces from it. You can create short reels from it, which you can upload it on Instagram or YouTube Shorts. You can have a YouTube video, like we are recording a video podcast, so you will have it on YouTube. You can at the same time have it on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast. Also, you can create a blog from it. You can write something out of from it. So from one podcast, you can create multiple content pieces. So that is also one big advantage of podcast. So which is not, there in the other content forms.
True, true, true. Totally, totally agreement. What about the shyness? I don't
But
like social media. I don't know how to do it. I think that holds many people back. Also, there is this fear of what all will I have to post? Do I have to put my personal life? You have been doing this for a while, so any suggestions for those minds who are holding themselves back?
so just because you are holding yourself back is not changing anything. So try not to hold back and share those things with the world at large. Some things may change. And as we spoke in the beginning, if you're creating a content, if you're creating a good content, it should reach the target audience. Otherwise, there's no point in creating it. If good content doesn't reach the audience, the bad content will keep reaching them. So to stop it from, spoiling our society, create good content and also market it so that it reaches people.
True.
So whatever efforts that you are putting in creating that content, it the it will be worth only if somebody listens to it. So put in that effort to market it as well.
I think you said that right. It is about showing up.
Yeah,
I think you and I only had this conversation once, which is something that somebody told me when we were talking about what exactly is dharma, and the person said that
yeah,
dharma is about you showing up for your business and for your work so that
yes,
your consumers and your customers do not have bad experiences, because when you don't show up, then somebody who may not be giving the ultimate service is
right,
showing up, and that's what your actual consumer is giving. So
right,
it's what your job is. Okay.
yes,
Thank you,
yes.
thank you, thank you for reiterating that. One important question, because everybody I think that I connect with also who ask about how did you get started and money part. What does commercializing your podcast or monetizing podcast actually mean? Does somebody earn directly from the podcast? So would you like to shed little light on that aspect?
Yeah, yeah. So there are various ways of doing it. Nowadays, people can directly earn from the podcast as well. So there are commercial podcasts wherein the guest pays to appear on your podcast. So that's one way of doing it. But that's the easiest way also doing it. Then there are passive mediums from where you can earn money from. So you don't earn directly from the podcast, but then uh, because of your podcast, you get a lot of yeah also. So we for us, we are producing podcasts for the people from where we can earn it. So for example, Inspiration Katta is absolutely it has no commercial angle to it. It's completely free of cost. I don't pay to the guest, or I don't get money from the guest as well. So it's completely without any commercial angle, so that I can keep it. I can be true to myself, or I can be true to the aim that I have in my mind. So, but you can have commercial podcasts. You can produce podcasts for others. You can provide editing services for others. You can also, for example, what I am doing. I've written two books because of
Yeah.
my podcast. That's a passive income for me. I teach in different colleges, so that's again a passive medium for me. I coach individuals to create their own podcast, so that's again a passive medium. So either you directly earn from the podcast, or you earn passive. You get a passive income because of your podcasting. So there are these two ways by which you can earn, and slowly the platforms like Spotify, they are working genuinely towards starting the monetization for the podcasters as well, which is already there on YouTube.
True, true. Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing this. I know I've asked you a lot of questions in terms of content creation, marketing, and so on, but I think there wouldn't have been a better person than you, Nachiket, to share, because it comes firsthand from your experience, something that you discovered in your way and you're also sharing and teaching. One last question before we close today, and that is, as you said, you're also teaching very young minds, in terms of how to create podcasts and everything. So, what's the difference that you notice between, you teaching an adult batch, like people who are already like my level, who want to just do it for whatever reasons, they're very clear about it, and these young minds who are just still at an exploration stage. So, what's the difference in your learnings from them or your teaching style?
So one thing about the adults or the people who've done something in their lives is they feel that they have content and they do not know the technology.
Hmm.
But technology, I feel they can learn very easily. The problem with them is they have the problem of plenty. So what content they should come up with, what content they should share, is a basic problem for them, because they are doing a lot of things in their lives, out of which what is a podcast worthy content or a content creation worthy knowledge that they have is the answer they should find out.
Got it.
Yes, and the students, the new age, the Gen Z, of course, in terms of technology, they are very smart, but they are also very clear in their mind that what content they want to make.
Hmm.
So that is also not an issue for them. They're very clear in their mind. We are the people who are very confused. No.
No, I think I did see that firsthand, and also listening to all the podcasts that were created in a very short period of time, I think
Yes.
explains the level of creativity one can reach if they just get that little guidance, little, tips on what and how to go about it. So you have been doing some amazing work, and you have continued to create so many more podcasters. So what's next for you?
What's next for me is in terms of writing, I would like to share that the English version of Zoje Vanchil is going to come out very soon. Yes, it's in the editing phase. We'll be launching it very soon. So that's one. We are also thinking about bringing in the podcasting book in English so that can also reach a wider audience. In terms of podcasting, of course, the coaching is going on. Creating new creators is a aim. Creating content creators from the rural areas who can create content for the betterment of their peers is one of my dreams, which I'm working on that as well. My own podcast, the season two will also be, will be coming up very shortly. And as I said, that it is not going to be simple plain interviews. It's going to be a lot more than that in that.
Thank you. I am so looking forward to all of them, especially the books in English too, because I feel that there is a huge audience who definitely need them. And of course, your podcast and the new version of it. So, thank you, Nachiket, once again for being here, sharing your time with us. Anything you want to say to our audience before we close? Any message, any tip that you would like to give?
No, I'm nobody to give any kind of a tip. So I just want to thank you, Snail. You are doing a lot of things wonderfully. You are arranging all of them and very nicely doing everything. So all the best to you. I'll just like to say one thing that if I can do it, anybody in the world can do it. I mean, without any background, if I can create a podcast now with so much of options in technology platforms, can easily create one, and please do create one because there will always be somebody who would like to get some knowledge, information, wisdom, entertainment from you. So just create good content so that the bad content will automatically fade away.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nachiket. And thank you everyone for listening in. As I always say, I hope you have taken that one step today because we all are born abundant. All we need to do is take that one step to claim that abundance. So take that one step today. Have a fantastic life, and I will see you very soon with our next episode.
Thank you, Snail, for inviting me. It was a pleasure coming to your podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.